Hello, war fighters. War is hell. Welcome to the intermission of the series where we are taking a look at what could happen in a Second Falklands War. For the intermission, there's a few things I do want to go over. One, I do want to make sure I catch everybody up on what has brought us to this point so far. Two, I want to take a look at some of the things that are taking place off of the battlefield that will influence the outcome of the war. And then the last thing will be to kind of get you guys prepped and hopefully hyped for what to expect in the second half of this series. That being said, let's start off by talking about what has brought us up to this point so far. Our story starts on December 21st of 2017 when Argentina launches an assault on the airport at Port Stanley in an effort to capture the airfield intact. Port Stanley is the largest population center on the islands by a large margin, so taking that city would be critical to control of the islands. Under the guise of a geological survey group, lead elements of the 4th Parachute Brigade capture and hold the airfield at Port Stanley as reinforcements from Argentina arrive to start the invasion of the rest of the islands. Once the airfield is taken, the rest of the 4th Parachute Brigade push into Stanley to attack the city and the British forces inside the city. Argentina successfully takes Stanley and continues to move to the only other airfield on the island and the central point for the British defense at RAF Mount Pleasant. The main objective of the British at this point is to hold out as long as they can in an effort to slow the Argentine advance, in hopes that either reinforcements from the UK can arrive or a diplomatic solution is found. The longer that they can hold Mount Pleasant, the better chances that things will turn out well for them. Unfortunately for the British, while they were able to initially slow the Argentine advance, the British forces were spread too thin and their enemy was too numerous. Within 48 hours of their initial landing, Argentina was able to make a push and take the airfield at Mount Pleasant, and simultaneously taking out the rest of British air power on the islands. A large portion of the British Army fall back to Goose Green, which is a narrow strip of land between the northern and southern parts of the East Falkland Island. Rather than making a direct attack on the British positions, Argentine armor and soldiers attack the southern part of the East Falkland Islands at a small town called North Arm. This serves to surround the British in an effort to force them to surrender. When the initial request for surrender is refused by the British, they know that an Argentine attack is imminent and choose to hit the Argentine lines before Argentina can attack them. This attack serves to delay the main Argentinian thrust and allows some British soldiers an opportunity to escape behind enemy lines. Once the hole is closed, the British forces do surrender, and the HMS Vigilant is tasked with the insertion of members of the British Special Boat Service. They are to rescue any British service members still in hiding behind enemy lines on the Falkland Islands and to bring them home. For the first half of the series, the casualties are as follows. For the British, 239 killed, 422 wounded, and 482 captured. For Argentina, 392 killed, 603 wounded, and 0 captured. For the civilians, 5 killed and 22 wounded, most of which took place during the attack at Port Stanley. Now, we shouldn't be surprised with the outcome thus far. With the UK being 8,000 miles away from the Falkland Islands and with Argentina being 400 miles away, it's nearly impossible for the UK to bring a force to the islands that would be effective in stopping the Argentine advance, especially in a scenario such as this, when Argentina lands around 15,000 soldiers to counter the 1,200 British forces on the island. In the First Falklands War, many, including Admiral Jorge Anaya, think that there would be no military response from the UK should they invade the Falkland Islands. In the second conflict, however, Argentina thinks differently. Even before the British surrender at Goose Green, preparations begin on defending the island from a UK invasion force. Rather than deporting the British service members to the UK as had been done in the first conflict, this time they are kept as POWs and are used as a bargaining chip to force the British to acknowledge Argentine control of the islands. At home, the people of Argentina are happy. The islands are back in their possession, and in a widely broadcasted speech on Christmas Day from La Casa Rosada, Presidente Macri declares that the Malvinas returning to Argentina is his Christmas present to the nation. In that same speech, he dedicates some time to speak directly to the people of Northern Ireland and Scotland, who will be voting for their independence from the UK in a short time following the Brexit vote. He says, "The people of Scotland and Northern Ireland should not send their sons, brothers, and fathers to fight and die on a patch of earth that after your vote for independence will no longer be yours. Any attempt to retake the islands will be met with a stiff resistance from a determined Argentine military. This is not your war. This is not your fight. Your men not needlessly die." His words do strike home to some in the UK, but others tend to follow and agree with the words of Prime Minister Theresa May, who says in a televised response of her own that the will of the people is of paramount importance to this Prime Minister and to the rest of the government of the United Kingdom. Should Northern Ireland and Scotland vote to leave the UK, it would sadden me and many others greatly, but their wish would be honored. Those, however, who seek to remain British, like those on the Falkland Islands, should also have their wishes honored, and they should remain with us. Their voices will be heard, and in the name of the will of those people, we will fight. As we look at the Second Falklands War, it is important to understand the significance of victory in the First Falklands War for the United Kingdom. Prior to that point, the UK was in decline as a global power and running constant cuts to their military budget. This had been the case since the Suez Crisis in 1956. Many historians see the Suez Crisis as a humiliation for the British armed forces and really the end of the British Empire. However, after victory in 1982, Britain was reinvigorated, and we may see something similar to that taking place right now. There's less support for military intervention in the UK following the intelligence failures which led up to the invasion of Iraq in 2003, engagements that took place in Afghanistan, and there's still many people in the government who still feel embarrassed with the Brexit vote. The British government could see victory in the Falkland Islands during the Second Falklands War as a way to be able to reinvigorate the nation once again and to unify all the members of the United Kingdom. The British at this point are willing to fight, but are unable to do so without much preparation. The army would be ready to go at a moment's notice, but the Navy knows it's going to need a carrier to lead its task force. The HMS Queen Elizabeth is by far the carrier closest to being ready for the challenge. However, they are going to need more F-35s to arrive to give the carrier her teeth. The British forces deem it to be worth the wait for these additional F-35s as they see a fifth-generation fighter being able to tip the balance in their favor. After 2 months' time, the task force would be ready to set sail and head to the Falkland Islands. This would give Argentina more time to rearm and to dig in, but the benefit of having a carrier armed with fifth-generation fighters proves to be more important. As the British Naval Task Force sets sail with HMS Queen Elizabeth in the lead, it takes them weeks to be able to make the 8,000-mile journey from the UK to the Falkland Islands. When they are within range, British naval vessels open fire with cruise missiles on the Falkland Islands, targeting the runways at RAF Mount Pleasant and at Port Stanley. Satellite imagery shows that these cruise missile attacks were successful in cratering the runways and preventing any Argentine fixed-wing aircraft from being able to use them. And with this, the invasion of the Falkland Islands by the British is set to proceed. We are now set to start the second half of this series, where we take a look at what would happen during the Second Falklands War. The British response? Well, this is going to be interesting, so please subscribe if you guys have not already, and join me in the second half. Warfighters, war is hell, but you don't have to worry, because warfighters, I've got your six.